Joining us now, John Fetterman, the Democratic Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania. Mr. Lieutenant Governor, good morning to you. I think the first question is, how many more votes, to your knowledge, does Pennsylvania have to count, and when might we see them?
Give or take, it's around 115 to 120,000, I would imagine, and they're going to continue to count them. And I am unaware and would pretty much all but guarantee that there is not one county or area of Pennsylvania where the mail-in ballots don't skew significantly towards Vice President Biden. I've been saying this for a while. Math is math, and you saw that happen this morning. And you're going to continue to see Vice President Biden increase his lead throughout as the reports come in.
You know, if you are a fan of the president, you're watching this razor-thin margin, and you may be saying, well, the president's talking about all this fraud that's going on. What's your take on that?
My take on that is that we wouldn't be arguing whether 1 + 1 = 3. We would dismiss it out of hand because we know that's not true. At what point does yelling about voter fraud in the complete utter absence of any evidence become yelling fire in a crowded theater? There is no basis for any claims of voter fraud. And the president has marginalized himself as no more than a troll saying outlandish things that have no basis in reality. Math is coming. Math arrived in a big dose as Joe Biden went ahead just now, and you're going to see that bank. And there's nothing behind that other than math.
You obviously are not a fan of the president or a member of his party. There is a lawsuit in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Oh, I just want to make sure people. Yes, of course. I just want to make sure people understand where you're coming from. Yep.
I'm a fan of math, and math doesn't respond well to opinion. It's math. And that's what we're going to be looking at in Pennsylvania throughout the day.
Right. Okay. You're counting mail-in votes. You got about 100,000 left. We know the mail-in votes have favored Joe Biden because that was his campaign strategy, telling his voters, mail your vote. The president's campaign strategy was show up in person. All those in-person votes have been counted. Now they're counting the mail-in votes, and that's why we've seen things develop this way in Pennsylvania. I do want to ask you, Lieutenant Governor, about this lawsuit that is on hold for the moment, having to do with this decision by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that ballots that were sent before Election Day, they have to be sent before Election Day, but arrived up to today, 3 days later, I'm calling them the Tuesday to Friday ballots, that they could be counted. Now, local officials had decided to segregate those ballots, and to my understanding, and I'm hoping you can confirm this, are those segregated ballots, the ones that are potentially controversial, have they been counted and added into this total yet, to your knowledge?
They haven't. And let me be clear. I don't think those ballots are even going to be an issue. I think that the number of outstanding ballots, and I want to be clear, the ballots that are being counted right now are the ones that were received on or before Election Day by 8 o'clock. So those aren't subject to any lawsuits, the president can sue a ham sandwich. He can send 1,000 lawyers to Pennsylvania, but it's not going to change the basic fact of the matter is that every one of these ballots that's in play right now that's going to be counted today throughout the rest of the day has been lawfully received and going to be counted, and they're all going to skew in Joe Biden's favor. You've seen it happen, and it's going to continue to happen.
Lieutenant Governor, when are we going to know for sure what the count is in Florida? Do you think you'll know by the end of the day?
In Pennsylvania?
I mean, in Pennsylvania, sorry.
We're all on deadlines, not much sleep.
Yeah, I can't specify an exact time, but I mean, as Mr. Todd was just indicating, it's like, like I said, math doesn't care what your feelings are. Math is going to lead us to the truth. And the truth is that I am not aware of one single county where the mail-in ballots did not skew in the vice president's behavior by a factor of 60-40 all the way up to and approaching 90-10. And it's unlikely we're going to see that at this point going forward. So I think you're going to see the vice president's lead expand, and I would see it maybe expand it to maybe 75, or low six figures at this point.
All right. Pennsylvania's Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, thanks for joining us on a busy day. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to make a quick point here that we're sitting here going and we're going out. We're having to track these vote by mail numbers and tell you, you heard the Lieutenant Governor say there's been the 60% clip sort of overall, 90% in some areas. We could have been stuck doing this in the state of Florida too, had we only counted essentially Republican votes first, then Democratic votes. I mean, unfortunately, the Pennsylvania state legislature put us in this situation, right, where they essentially put us where we counted election day votes first, and then we counted the vote by mail. So then it gives this impression as people are following, what's going on? I thought the president was leading. And then, when we do these after action reports, the president clearly discouraged his voters from doing vote by mail. And that's why we're seeing this skew that we're seeing. He got a good turnout on election day. I don't think he lost votes here, but in some ways, this was the strategy he pursued. The Democrats pursued a strategy of bank your votes earlier, worried about what the pandemic would do, and here we are. But I will say this, this perception of agita that's out there that somehow, they're taking it away from the president or this, and it's like, it's all because of how we counted these ballots in Pennsylvania. We would have had the same allegations in Florida, but Florida, thankfully, put it all in the same bucket.
It's actually interesting because in both Pennsylvania and Florida, you have Republicans who made those decisions. So in Pennsylvania, it was the Republican legislature that said, you're going to count the in-person first. You can't even open those mail ballots until 7 or 8 o'clock on Tuesday night of election night. So that's how it is in Pennsylvania. In Florida, Casey, you've got a Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, and the legislature there. They decided, no, all right, let's do it the opposite way. We're going to do mail first, and then we're going to do in person. And you saw that it developed a different way. It looked good for Biden at first, and then ultimately Trump won and won big in Florida.
Yeah, no, that's right. And, we one of the things that people worry about when they're making these decisions is you don't want to skew what people are thinking when they walk into the voting booth. So everyone wants to make sure that if you're counting mail-in ballots before Election Day, that count stays a secret. So that's part of how they think about these decisions. But, the reality is here, and I hope that the takeaway is for everyone, that counting all of the ballots and encouraging people to vote, no matter how, is the way to go. Because to Chuck's point about these vote-by-mail ballots, I mean, the president got enormous turnout. I mean, if he does in fact lose this election, he'll lose it with a lot more votes than he got in 2016. So that means Republicans turned out in higher numbers. But he was out there discouraging people to vote by mail, saying that's not safe, it's potentially fraudulent, raising questions about that. And it is possible that hurt him. We'll never know, really, that reality. But, I hope that one of the takeaways that we have from this election, and, there have been some assumptions in the past that if more people vote, it's going to benefit Democrats. And there are sometimes legislatures or other bodies or politicians who make decisions about that, right? And they say, oh, well, I'm going to perceive, and you see it in some of these lawsuits, that if we win this lawsuit that will count fewer ballots, it will be better off for my political party. I hope that we can just be done with that.
Yeah. They legislate based on their own confirmation bias, the conventional wisdom that turned out to be wrong. In fact, our own pollster, Bill McIntyre, was ranting about this when we were talking about turnout. He said, look, we had an idea up to a certain number, but there's a point where so many people vote that you have to throw out sort of assumptions. In low turnouts, the patterns matter a lot. The higher the turnout, you have to throw out historical context. We've never had an election like this where so many people participated, and so many people participated in different ways.
Yeah, Republicans in Texas have said they made a mistake. They assumed all the new voters would be Democrats, and they weren't.